Hello, everyone.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to a conversation over drinks. Coach Wolverine and Coach Kelowna here. We're going to talk to you today about over-justifying to ourselves. Over-justification. Why do we over-justify what we do, what we think, what we say, how we act, and a plethora of other points that Coach Kelowna here and I talked about right beforehand.
Yeah.
And where would you like to go with that one first?
I think first thing is over-justification happens more often when we don't have a goal, a purpose, or something that we're actively working on. Like we talked about before, for context, like if we want to save a little bit of money for something, instead of just saying, hey, I need to save some money, it's I need to save X amount to do Y, or to do something else. It's very specific, and that allows us to do that. But if it's simply, I need to save some money, and I go to the grocery store, or I go to the mall, or I go somewhere, and I end up spending a few $100s that, if I was really trying to save some money, I shouldn't have spent. Then I will go home, and I will justify why I spent that money and why it's okay and how I'm going to make that work with still saving money. So the over-justification happens after the fact of doing something that doesn't directly contribute to your goal. And that's like money. I use money because it's very linear in thought because it's numbers, but that happens everywhere. That happens in our relationships, our communications, our fitness goals, our career goals, pretty much everything in every facet of what we do is we do something, an action, and we justify it after the fact, or we have an opinion, which we've discussed before, and we justify it after the fact. So what we're going to talk about is a few examples in context of how and why that's important to understand that we do this, and we're wired to do it, and it's okay to do it, and what the difference of being aware about that is, and how to go about kind of chipping away at it and setting yourself up for more success.
So going back to the money thing, it's like, how often have you gone to the store when you have this goal that you're saving for something, be it a trip, be it a new car part, a new hockey stick, whatever that it takes efforts to save towards. And you go to grab something from the store, and you sit there and you're looking at it, and you're like, I know I'm saving for something, but I really want this thing right now. And you argue with yourself in your head, and you figure out reasons as to why it's okay for you to purchase whatever it is that's currently in your hand. So you're over justifying to yourself why it's okay for you to break your goal or veer off from your goal to purchase said thing. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because sometimes it's okay to do that. Sometimes it really is, and then other times it's really not, right? Are you looking for instant gratification of just spending the money that you're saving now, or is what you're currently about to purchase or acquire actually going to add value to your life? Is it going to add value now? Is it going to contribute to the further embetterment of yourself in the rest of your goals? Or instant gratification. Have you ever done this? I sure as shit know that I've done it a lot, more than I'd love to admit.
Yeah, and for me, going back to before I started working out and stuff and I was really heavy, like impulse buying, or if I was tired heading home from work, I'd be like, oh, I could cook dinner, which would help me with weight loss and energy and all this stuff. Or I could stop at Dairy Queen and get 2 snack wraps and a burger because it's right there. And that was like part of the series of events that led me to that. And I guess that kind of bridges me into leaning into who you are and things that you need. As Dylan said, like sometimes that instant gratification or the satisfaction that you get allows you some more space or some more freedom to continue moving forward, and that's okay. So that's where you really need to understand your value. For me, I know I've touched on it before, like I love snacking. I snack a ton in the evening, but my whole thing is I'm a person that if I have a bag of chips on the couch, I'm probably going to eat that entire bag of chips. So instead of being like, oh, chips don't come around ever, it's I portion them out and I do what I do and I put them in a cup, and that cup comes back to where I'm sitting and the chips go in the back of the cabinet or at the back of the shelf. So that's what allows me to find a solution without me like being like, don't touch chips, snacks, anything like that. They can't be around me. Because that only leads to, like, if you have a breakdown and you're having a bad day and you're at a store, you're like, I'm going to buy 3 bags bags of chips, and all 3 of these bags are about to be gone. So that's just a very like encapsulated micro piece of finding a solution and leaning into yourself. But if you have inclinations where you need to go out and even like have a few drinks with the buddies and stuff, that's okay. Right? It's okay to know these things, but it's finding the happy medium between excess and progress is the biggest thing. And I know Dylan was talking about before how at a point where you were doing some work in the oil field and you were making some pretty good money, but you were still worrying about certain things because of your over justification for things.
Yeah. So there is a time in my life where I was making more money than I needed at the time, and I would justify that. Oh, I need this, right? So I used to have a monthly bill of like $500 on gym supplements. Looking back, waste of money. $500 a month when I was making over $200 to $2,500 every 2 weeks. So I was clearing anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a month, and I was living in a not pristine apartment by any means, but yet I never had money because I would justify these needless things that I would purchase, be like, oh well, you know, I'm only going to live once, so let's have this now, or I'll never know when this is going to be here again too. And so one big factor that I learned around justification, a lot of the times when we justify anything to ourselves, it comes from a stemming belief of a lack of, or scarcity, a belief that there's not enough. And so we need to have this now, we need to have this gratification now because there isn't enough of whatever it is that we want. Whether or not it's like, oh, there's cookies here on the table, gotta have the cookies now because I don't know when I'm gonna have them again, or, oh, you know, I don't know when I'm going to go drinking with the buddies again, so I'm going to just let loose and just give her all night and go nuts. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, it's good to do it every once in a while, but if you find yourself in the moment needing to justify anything to yourself, you probably might want to pick the latter. Because if it's a good idea, you don't have to argue with yourself about it. Right? Nobody is going to inherently argue with themselves of like, you know, should I shoot myself in the foot or not? Just because you're holding said gun and aimed at said foot. But if you're being told that, hey, if you shoot yourself in the foot, I'm going to give you 10 grand right now, you're going to find reasons to justify why it's either going to be good or bad.
It'd be more of a conversation for sure.
So this is why it's important to be mindful around the why behind we do anything. Is the purpose of whatever your choice is going to lead you to a prosperous future? Is it going to aid in your journey forward? Or is it to feel good, feel whole, accomplished, whatever it is, gratified right now? Because if it's right now,
then you really got to weigh kind of what's going on.
Exactly.
And I know, like, knowing more about yourself and being a little more aware on where your weak points are. Like for me, like I said, snacking and stopping and not cooking and stuff was a very big weak point for me in regards to fitness. So address your weak points first. And it's not saying that there's never going to be like backslides or it's going to be a problem, but at least if you're actively working on it and you own the fact that like, hey, this is a thing. Sometimes I'm still going to stop and grab a snack wrap. Sometimes I'm still going to eat snacks at home or have too many. But it's not coming from a place of like, oh, this will be my last bag, and diet starts Monday, and all these other things that we hear all the time. Like, and I always I lean into the fitness stuff a ton because it's a very controlled environment. Like you can
it's
gauge
also highly relatable
to everything else, and you can gauge your progress. You can, through numbers, through reps, through sets, through days shown up, through cardiovascular, through everything. Like there's very good parameters that are there to gauge your progress. It becomes a little more complicated when you start transferring that to life, but the progress or the process is essentially the same thing. So establishing your goals or your progress, like, okay, every 2 weeks, I'm going to allow myself to have too many snacks, then stop. Every 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? I'm going to save $55 a week by not doing this. And if I do that consistently for 4 weeks, I'm going to allow myself to go buy something worth $100. You're still coming out progress, right? that's why when we talk about setting goals in the gym, we always talk about time frame. Like, are you going to go on a trip? Okay, when is your trip? And that is important. So now we have a time frame to start breaking things up. Like we said earlier, if it's simply, I want to go on a trip in the next year, your progress is going to be mitigated by a lot, right? And depending on whose circles and stuff you follow, like to build off what Dill was saying, when you're finding yourself justifying things, if it's not like a hell yes, it's probably a no. And that's a quote that you run into a lot. But yeah, when it comes to your choice, if it's not like, yep, let's go, then there's a good chance, or there's probably a reason there for you to be like, hey, maybe not.
Yeah. If it's not a fuck yes, you're justifying to yourself why it's a yes. If the justification is needed,
there's a gap in there somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
need we say more on that? And I think that's probably a good point to end it on this one.
100%.
So if you guys liked this video or found us the slightest bit entertaining, please like, share, subscribe. This will be uploaded to YouTube at a later date.
Yeah, if you find yourself over justifying or anything, feel free to let us know in the comments. Ask us why. Ask us if we've got some strategies to maybe help you out. If it's fitness related, if it's more goal related, life related, by all means, let's have a chat.
Or even if you want to challenge us on a topic and we want to have a back and forth conversation on something, that's welcome too, because we're not saying here that we're inherently right. This is our scope of perspective of what we feel is the best steps forward to a fulfilled life. So if you have a counter perspective that you would like us to explore on,
By all means.
that one's welcome too.
Appreciate it.